Hey everyone, today I want to talk to you about some last minute revision tips that helped me get all 8s and 9s during my GCSEs. But before we get into this video, I want to thank the sponsor Pearson, the world's leading learning company. More on that later in the video. The first thing I want to talk to you about is maths. Maths has this sort of stigma surrounding it where either you get it or you don't. But the thing is with maths, all you need is practice. I quickly found myself getting, a lot of marks in the beginning of the paper. But then towards the end of the paper, when the harder questions crept up, I noticed myself dropping marks. So what I did to kind of counteract that is I would find past papers and just go through the harder questions. There are also lots of different websites where you can find, worked examples. But for me, just going through those last couple questions would be super useful. I had this tendency when doing maths just to kind of do easier questions that, I could do nicely while listening to music. That's not really beneficial to you. If you're struggling to do a question, that's good. That's helpful. That means you're going to learn from doing that question. It's not going to improve your math skills if you just keep doing easy questions over and over again. You need to get to those back of the paper questions that are going to give you the majority of your marks. So I would just say sit down, do lots and lots and lots of past papers. Do as many as you can because the format of questions is recycled. If you're doing past paper questions, you're getting a gauge to how they're actually going to ask you the question in the exam, because it's all well and good doing lots of individual little practice questions, but in the exam you're not going to get that. You're going to get 5 markers, 4 markers. It's going to be more difficult questions than you're used to in practice. So if you're going over the past papers, then it means you're going to be able to understand what they're trying to ask you to do in the exams. With these past papers though, do them in exam conditions. Time yourself. Make sure you're using effective timekeeping skills. Make sure you're effectively reading the question. I really urge you to also use a highlighter when you can. Now at A-level especially, I find myself highlighting key parts of the questions so I don't just get lost in it. A good thing a teacher introduced to us in our chemistry A-level class was actually writing down where and why you lost the marks. So this means when you go back over this paper, you can reflect on it, because it's no good doing a past paper, marking it and never looking back on it. You need to go back over, see why you lost marks, and then in the new paper, try and emphasize not doing that again. Another thing I used quite a lot for maths was the textbook itself, because it will tell you everything that you need to know. With my example being Edexcel, I obviously used the Pearson student book. Now this one's absolutely fantastic. I really recommend you get this. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know who Pearson are, they are the world's leading learning company, making revision resources for specific exam boards, which include worked examples as well as video solutions. One thing I find particularly useful is the examiner's report section, basically giving you the inside scoop on what you need to know. So it's pretty much telling you what the examiners have found students on average struggle with the most. The revision guides are absolutely amazing because they cover all the content that could come up in your exam. One thing my school offered that I would urge you to get is the Practice Papers Plus. I always talk about how important doing past papers and practice papers is, and these are absolutely amazing. Not only can you perfect your response with targeted hints, there's also guidance and a worked response for every question inside. Because it's all well and good knowing the content, but knowing how to answer the questions properly is one of the most important and overlooked steps in the revision process. Go ahead, pick up the revision guides, pick up the flashcards, and use the link in the description to buy your Pearson products. So now moving on to triple science or combined science. I took triple science, but these tips can easily be applied to combined science. At this stage, it's kind of difficult to learn content. So what I'd recommend is go over some questions. I know I'm beginning to sound like a broken record, but go over some questions, do a practice paper, see what mark you're getting right now, and then figure out where you're losing marks. Again, brings me back to that beginning tip. Write down where you're losing marks. If you're, seeing that you're losing marks on electrolysis, now you can easily go back through the textbook and begin to understand how electrolysis works. Then you can do practice questions on that, go back, do another past paper, see where you're missing marks. It's a system that works well together if you put in the effort. If you're struggling to actually, learn the content itself, there's so many resources online. There's videos, there's your teachers. Go back, talk to them, try and actually understand the content and not just memorize it. If you're actually going to try and learn the information through reading the textbook, make sure every couple lines you're asking yourself, do I understand this? Or give yourself a practice question on what you've just read. Make sure to do the summary questions at the end of chapters. Those are super useful. The most important thing you can do right now is just testing yourself. There's not too much else. Testing yourself, trying to make sure you actually understand the content and being proactive about it. Stay on it. Every day you want to be going over content and revisiting content. because it's not going to be good doing, science for 6 hours a week on a Saturday. It's going to be more useful if you just do science for half an hour a day for the whole week. Moving on to English. Bear in mind I got an A in English language and an A in English literature, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But what I found super useful was just doing some questions and then going to my teacher to mark it. I think the reason I don't like English too much is just because I would have to, go to someone to mark it. It's kind of hard to mark your work yourself, if you know what I mean. So I'll just go to my teacher, nag her about marking it, seeing where I've gone wrong, asking her for feedback, and then working on that for the next time. However, if for some reason you can't do that, I would recommend doing the questions and then maybe like a day later or so, marking over again. Why? Because I think you're a lot more critical when you're looking at it with fresh eyes. In the moment, you might be writing the most amazing short story, or it feels like you're writing the most amazing short story. However, if you go back like a day later, you're a lot more critical and you're a lot more better at self-marking, I think. If you have some very kind, smart friends, get them to mark it. Maybe you can exchange questions with each other and then mark each other's work. I think this is also super useful. Peer marking is a very underrated skill. It might be a bit late for this now, but having your own copy of the books you have to, talk about in English literature is super useful because, you can annotate them, highlight them, scribble all over them. And it's just good to constantly be rereading over the story, refreshing your mind of important quotes and important, sections of the book. So if you haven't, buy it. If you can't do that, I think you can get like free PDF copies online, so that's not too bad either. Now let's move on to some more general studying tips. Sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things for your mental health and just functioning as a normal person in general. I feel like in the kind of climate we're in today, it's cool to, be up to 1 a.m. studying or be the last person to go to bed, and just, oh, I'm so tired, I only went to bed at like 3 a.m. Like, do not be proud of that. That's not good. Like, you need to be sleeping more. Be proud if you got your 8 hours. Sleep at least 8 hours all the time. Make sure you're getting good enough rest before exam. I'm telling you right now, it's better to get 8 hours of sleep than to cram till 1 a.m. before the exam. Trust me, it's not gonna be worth it. You're gonna be tired, you're not gonna be functioning as well, and it's gonna be harder for you to recall stuff anyway. If you are struggling with sleep, what I found to do is just make sure you get up at the same time every single day. Weekends, weekdays, always get up at the same time, and eventually your body will naturally start to feel tired around the time you need to actually get to sleep to get your 8 hours. In exams, I also woke up a little bit earlier than usual and would do like an hour of work before school. I found this super nice because it would be dark outside, it would be nice and peaceful, and everything would be quiet. And this is when I got a lot of my work done. I would actually just go over my flashcards in the morning. Doing this, it also means that I've already got like an hour of revision done before I even get to school, which means it's less work for me to do after school when I get home. Now I want to talk about study session time. For me, I worked in larger chunks between 2 to 4 hours. I think towards the end of it, I was working like 4-hour chunks, especially on weekend, just because I found when I took breaks, I would be more likely to deviate from what I was doing, and that break would become a half an hour break, then an hour break, then 2, and then I would just never get work done. So I found if I just planned my work, I would work. Like, it sounds really stupid, but for me, as long as I had work to do, I would actually just sit down and do it. It also means you're not having to constantly stop and restart. However, this system doesn't work for everybody, and if it doesn't work for you, fine. Find out what does work for you. I think by now you should know. Another method, which is quite good, is the Pomodoro method. However, I don't really like this. It works quite well with friends. If you're studying with friends a lot right now, the Pomodoro method is fantastic, but larger chunks worked really well for me. Since it was exam season, I also use Google Calendar to, schedule larger chunks of studying. For example, if I'm doing like maths for 2 hours straight, I'll literally just pop it on Google Calendar. However, for some shorter things, I would just use Microsoft To Do because it made a nice little chime whenever like I clicked off a task. These kinds of little things that give you little hits of dopamine are super nice. Just having that little chime after I completed a task made it all the more satisfying to do it, and encouraged me to do more. It sounds so stupid, but trust me, it works. Last tip, which is a bit subjective, is keep a tidy room and a tidy person. Make sure your room is dust free. For me, this made it so much more enjoyable to work, like having a nice tidy room and my lights on and stuff like that. It made studying actually kind of fun. However, if I'm working like a mess, if stuff's on the floor, dust is all on my desk, I'm not gonna want to study that badly. Why would you want to sit down at a place for 4 hours that isn't even clean? Go ahead, tidy your room, take a shower. It can be an enjoyable experience. Now, if you want to enhance your revision and get those best grades possible, check out the link in the description to go to Pearson's website. Check out some of their superb products that I myself use to get all 8s and 9s during my GCSEs. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a productive week.